All right, David and I are back with Peter Spung in our leadership series. David, why don't you take this next one?
Good morning, Peter. So you have a great background in both technology and business. You started with business education, and then you've been with IBM 30 plus years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started your career at IBM and what you've learned from that?
Sure, absolutely. I started out as a developer. I was on contract by clients to develop application code to automate office systems. Anyone remember Wang IS and Wang OIS?
Wow.
I integrated those with IBM 5520s and display writers and all kinds of gobbledygook back in the day. But what I learned a lot about that was how to interact with clients, how to set their expectations about requirements, how to work with a team of people who had different experiences and skill sets from me. Technology and software especially is a team sport. I fully believe that, and we work together as a great team to deliver really good value. What constantly drove me was seeing the clients happy and delighted with the outcomes we were bringing them with these applications and integrating their systems together. What intrigued me and interested me, kept me going was, well, why do they care about this? What's the purpose of this system? Why does it exist? And then as I turned more, next I joined the product development teams. It sort of bothered me. A lot of what clients were paying us to do was integrate our own IT systems together. Not only IBM, but others in the industry, other systems like Wang I mentioned. And I always felt odd to me, like, why couldn't we develop products out of the box that are better integrated? Why couldn't we have integration architectures and APIs and all this sort of stuff, using the modern terminology? And that motivated me to get into product development and product management roles, where I was working with the team inside IBM to do a better job of delivering products that were better integrated out of the box and provided more client value. And that's always been sort of my motivation and mantra is there more client value that we could bring here? Is there value we could bring them through an ecosystem? Partners we could set up, other people, complementary solution providers, other ISVs that can plug in through APIs. What is it that we can bring to these clients that shows them additional value? And that we as IBM care not just about the transaction that we're going to undertake with some piece of hardware or piece of software, but generally speaking, we're putting in place a system that runs a very important process or workflow for them. We want that to persist and endure and be able to, add on, plug in, extend, have a reasonable life cycle for the customer, that system that we built. And that means it's got to be open and extensible and durable and all those sorts of things. And that's always kept driving me. Like, what's the market saying about that now? What's the market saying about that now? If we're in this particular space, what do we have to deliver next to deliver more client value or build a partner network around that, an ecosystem that does more of that? That's what motivates me.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about the quote unquote the why out there, Simon Sinek's why, and it sounds like you've got that down pat. You said make the client happy. Team sports. I make a lot of sports analogies to working together as a team, but it sounds like you've identified your why. Like Simon Sinek says, it's not about what you do, how you do it, and then do the why. Go the other way around, right? And it sounds like you've identified your why, but you've also identified your client's why, if you will. Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, ultimately they pay the bill, right? The client's buying my lunch, and my competitors are trying to eat my lunch. That's what goes on all day long. The client's buying me lunch, and the competitor's trying to take that lunch away from me. So what the heck is there about that going on in the market that gives us comparative advantage? How do we make the client happy and, have the competitors go elsewhere to try to eat lunch or have them go hungry, quite frankly.
Does IBM stand for it's a better meal?
I've not heard that one, but I think we should trademark that, Mark. I think we got something there.
All right. Well, this is on video, so we do expect royalties. So that was actually pretty good ad lib, if I may say so myself. It's interesting trying to bring in young executives, young people, that why becomes so important, and dealing with young executives in all your clients, it's really great to hear that you address the client experience, which God knows that shouldn't be a novel concept, you know?
Unfortunately, sometimes it's forgotten. So, like, recently in IBM, I've been responsible for integrating 3 startups. They're pretty late stage. But when you think about the inventor-founder type mindset, right, they're often thinking about the thing they created, the thing they invented. Sometimes they're missing some gaps in, well, how could we portray that thing or change that thing so it brings better client value? I know it seems like an obvious point, but sometimes they get so fixated on their baby that they've created, they have to think about what's the family for the baby, and however else you continue that metaphor, right? And that's all about client value. That's all about ecosystems, how it participates in a market, and its comparative advantage to competitors. Sometimes they get so maniacally focused that can be a missed point.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, David, go ahead.
Well, clearly, Peter, you've had a great background in cloud computing and distributed computing and applications. There are folks out there that don't really understand the terminology, the concept of what the Internet of Things is. Why don't you give us your impression of what the Internet of Things is?
Sure. Well, it's a lot. I'll start with the things that I think, let's work from the outside in. I think what will give the value it will bring to people who are using an Internet of Things is still to be written. So, for example, you can imagine you'll be able to go to the bathroom. So imagine, this is going to be kind of graphic. Sorry, I hope it's an okay subject. But imagine a world of lots of sensors everywhere, that allow these very intelligent devices to phone home, contact a cloud service, and do some analysis for you. So you wake up in the morning, most people sort of scratch their head, and the first thing they do is they go to the bathroom. Imagine when you come downstairs to make your cup of coffee, printed out for you is your report of your urinalysis and some concerns that might show up on that for you. That gets into, think about that. I mean, just think about how transformative that can be the way we deliver healthcare. On the flip side, think about the privacy and risk associated with that.
Right.
Imagine if suddenly a message goes to your insurer that says, hey, this guy may be developing a pre-existing condition. Right? This kind of stuff. So with that great power and great convenience for systems to sense and analyze and respond on our behalf in ways we're just beginning to dream of, literally, the book is still to be written on all this stuff, comes great concern about risk. Sort of like what comes with great opportunity. It's great responsibility and great accountability. So the people who are building these kinds of systems, the Google guys say do no evil kind of thing. You cannot take that seriously enough, in my view. To be a responsible technology leader tomorrow and today, quite frankly, is going to be thinking about the societal, the human, the geopolitical aspects of these systems we're building, because they're going to be really powerful and really smart. And we got to be ready to take on that accountability and responsibility, not just to, make money or serve a market. We have to think about those broader implications.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there was a term that was brought up to me of a cybersecurity person saying, remember the term collateral damage? Well, there's collateral benefit and there's collateral damage, he said. And it was fascinating. But if you don't do anything because you're worried about collateral damage, you'll never do anything, basically. Which
be frozen.
Yeah, and it kind of leads to you're a leader in a fast-moving industry, obviously. We're actually experts in working with our clients on attracting and retaining what we call mostly the right fit talent. So with all the integrations you're doing of technologies for yourself, for your clients, and you talked about team sports, how in tarnation do you orchestrate, the everybody having the same why, everybody on and attracting and retaining the A players, and integrate that into your own business culture and into your client's business culture?
That's a great question. The way I think about it is when you're assembling a leadership team and trying to go after a really important mission, transform a process or transform a market with a new technology or whatever it is that you're trying to do, Internet of Things, make a completely different life than people can imagine. You have people on that team who play roles, right? You have somebody who's responsible for marketing. And are they clearly communicating the message? Are they developing the demand gen programs you need? What are the core responsibilities of somebody who's playing that role? They play that role. And I don't care about their personal makeup. I don't care what motivates them. I don't care what they do in their spare time. But if the marketing messaging isn't clear, if the demand gen programs and go-to-market aren't clear, they're not fulfilling their role. And that's the job of the leader, is to make sure you're selecting people who understand very clearly what they're responsible for, what they're going to be measured on, what your standards of performance and expectation are, and what coaching and help and guidance you're going to provide them as the leader. In other words, you're not just pushing them out there and say, go give me some great messages, and if you don't, you die. You're then going to say, and here's how I'm going to try to help coach and grow you. Here's my strengths. Here's my weaknesses. Are we a good fit? Are we going to have good chemistry with you and me? And are we going to have good fit with others on the team? In other words, often people, for example, you staying on that marketing example, people in product management will actually be more in a product marketing kind of mindset. They think externally. They think about messaging and value props and, all that sort of stuff. Is that going to be a good combo? Is your leader who's leading product management and marketing, is that going to be a good combo? So you're also thinking about the chemistry of the team and the complementary skill sets. And sometimes you get into it and realize that people's motivations for joining a leadership team weren't what you thought, or the skills you thought they were bringing to the table weren't what you thought. And you got to be able to then have the realistic conversations with them as one of the leaders, saying, this isn't working out, or I thought you were able to do this and I don't see it. What's going on, right? And call each other out as a leadership team on those sorts of things.
Yeah, before I let David go on to the next question about going global, an interesting point you bring on. I learned about visualization years ago, mostly for sports, but then I had teachers and coaches show me how to use it for business. And younger people and every executive the good people love to know what their accountabilities are because they want to be able to perform to those versus hazy. They don't like hazy. But we would do this thing with executives where when they get an offer just before, we'd actually send them home and say, I don't care if you close your eyes or not, but I want you to visualize yourself getting up in the morning. You're now going to that new place. You're walking into the office. You're getting coffee and talking to people over there. Your boss calls you and you're making calls. Are you happy? And some of them look at me like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? Remember that? And in 30 years, I've had two people. Everybody else that we've done it with says, that was great because it really made me think and feel about being there and what I need to do. Two people in 30 years said, thanks for doing that. I don't even want to do this anymore, basically. And some people would say, well, that was crazy. Then you have to find a new person for your client. And I would say, you're missing the whole point. If it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit, right?
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
David, you want to go into that next point?
Sure. Well, Peter, you are involved with lots of different companies and lots of different clients. How has the international world changed given the amount of complexities that are involved with client service, server, and cloud computing virtualization?
Well, I think my perspective on it is it's giving people the ability to put platforms in places that they never imagined. What's a platform? Think about like Uber's or Airbnb's platform, right? Those are technology platforms most people can relate to because they've used them. Things like Uber or Lyft or Airbnb. That puts a platform in a place, the cloud does, and mobile devices in places that they never imagined. And quite frankly, weren't even possible like even 15, 20 years ago to get those kind of platforms as easily and quickly deployed in other settings, in other nations. Then you have to deal with, of course, the regulatory impact of that and the cultural impact of that. What does that mean? Does the fact that we can put an Airbnb platform in Hungary which just happened. Ustream, one of the companies I'm integrating now, has its engineering operations in Budapest. Uber was there for about 5 or 6 months, was doing great. The taxi and limo drivers complained, shut down like that.
Right.
Boom, gone. Right? So, and it was a slightly different business there. They had different incentives and different ways of hailing the rides, but also paying for the rides that had to be adapted to the local market. So I'm saying it's a long-winded way. I think David is saying is you can't just think about the technology platform aspects. You have to think about client adoption and what that means in the context of the culture of those people and the regulatory environment at place.
There's my dogs, by the way.
Yeah, that's a fun cue.
That brings up a good question. So, you obviously do a lot of work. You're very engaged in international business, local business, and the like. So what do you do for fun? Do you have pets? And how do you balance your work and professional life?
Yes. Great. Let's see. My key hobbies are I like to stay physically fit. So I run or work out every morning. That's a really important part of my sort of daily ritual. I think it's I'll say this. We had a daughter who went through some episodes of anxiety and depression that got very serious. And what we heard repeatedly, and it reinforced to me, habit I started as a kid, mostly from my father, was daily workouts. About the only thing you can do for your own brain, right, other than distract yourself or take meds, that create some sort of chemical reaction. The only thing that helps the health of your own brain, other than distraction and taking meds, is exercise. So I'm a big believer in that. So sort of that's thing one, is sleep and exercise. Thing two is I do have a pet. I have a 12-pound killer dog named Raleigh, nicknamed because 10 years ago we moved from the Raleigh-Durham area to New York, and my kids weren't really happy about it. My kids were in middle school, and they were like, I don't know, Dad. And my wife, Lisa, immediately said, if we get a dog, will you go? They said, yes. If you get a dog, we'll go. Because our two beloved dogs had just died. And so they said, if we get a dog, and they named him Raleigh, which is where we came from.
What breed? What breed of dog?
He's a Yorkie poo. So Yorkshire Terrier Poodle mix, 12 pounds. He has a lot of anxiety issues, so he fits well with some of the makeup of our family.
Don't we all?
Yeah. And so he's great. He loves people. He thinks everyone who comes to meet him is to meet him, not come to our house, not come to meet the Spung family. They're here to meet Raleigh, and he's just all over them with love. The other thing I do for fun is I'm a musician, play bass. If you go out and you Google Wilton Steel, Wilton, Connecticut's the town I live in, you can find some YouTube videos of Wilton Steel, which is a Caribbean steel drum band.
Nice.
I'm in. I play at church on Sunday. I'm also in a jazz trio we call the Relaxos. So it's three guys who like to relax playing music. That's our name. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where we could probably play out now. We could probably play cocktail party, background music kind of stuff as a jazz trio. So the Relaxo name might have to change.
Or you can start playing for
IBM.
There you go.
Yeah, you can start playing for executives for stress.
Who's your favorite bass player?
James Jamerson. No questions asked. He was the bass player for the Funk Brothers in the Motown House Band. Played on more #1 recordings than Michael Jackson, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and name your other top 10 groups. Played on more #1 recordings than them. He literally transformed the way people think about playing electric bass. Completely transformed it.
Sweet.
He's the man, and I'm from Motown, so come on.
Exactly. So last quick question: favorite food?
Favorite food? That's hard. I'm an omnivore. There's almost nothing I don't like. So, Mexican, Chinese, Italian, pizza, doesn't really matter. One of the reasons I like to exercise a lot is because then I can eat about anything I want.
Yeah, that's usually the excuse. I hear that all the time. I can eat more. So. Hey, listen, thank you so much for sharing with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.